Hello everybody, time for another challenge before we have the next bit of Joshua's story. What I want you to do is got a blindfold again, but this time I want your grown-up to put the blindfold on and you have to creep up behind them and see how close you can get before they realise you're there. Maybe you'll even be able to touch them on their shoulder. So they have to sit with their back to you and you creep up really quietly behind them and see if you can touch them on the shoulder. Okay, off you go. Hello, time for the next part of the story. Now, do you remember the name of the new leader? It was Joshua. Joshua had brought the children of Israel right up to the River Jordan, where God had said it was going to be safe. But you know what? They looked over the other side of the Jordan and there was a huge city, a city called Jericho. And Jericho was no friend to the children of Israel. I wonder why that was. Well, it was because they didn't believe in God. And they didn't want to worship God. In fact, they were really pretty nasty people. So how was Joshua going to keep his people safe if there was a big city with a wall around it that was full of enemies? What do you think he might have done? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about it. Okay, bye. So, what ideas did you come up with? Here's the idea that Joshua came up with. He wanted to know what it was like inside the city. So he sent 2 spies to go and find out what it was like. Of course, they couldn't walk through the front gate because everybody would know about them. So I imagine that they climbed up the wall to try and get over the other side, maybe even in the dark. But you know what? The soldiers in the city still found out about them and came chasing after them. So what were they going to do? Well, amazingly, in the wall there was a little house. And a woman called Rahab lived there. And she opened her door and said, come inside and hide. And that's what the 2 spies did. Now, why do you think Rahab did something like that? Because it was really dangerous for her. What do you think? Could it be because she knew about God? Let's have a think about that. Well, that's exactly what it was. Rahab had heard about God. She loved the sound of how he cared for his people, and she had started to worship him in secret. So she told the spies that she would look after them. And then the soldiers came knocking on the door. And she opened the door, and she said, just before she opened the door, to the 2 spies, go up and hide on my roof. I've got lots of plants drying there. Hide under the plants. And that's what they did. When the soldiers came, Rahab said, no spies here, thanks very much. And the soldiers went away. So after they'd gone, Rahab said to the 2 spies, whatever happens, please look after my family. And they promised that they would. And then they climbed out of her window, down the wall again, and they ran off into the hills to go and tell Joshua all about what had happened in the city of Jericho. And they said, we've told Rahab to put a red cord outside her window so that we'll know which one is her house and we'll keep her safe. And that's how the story ends this morning. Okay, now before we go, I think we could say a prayer together. So shall we close our eyes and we'll just start to talk to God. I'm going to read what this prayer says. Thank you, God, that you're with me. Even though I cannot see, I know you're there by my side. Whenever I can't decide how to act or what to do, I can always talk to you. Thank you, God, for being my friend. Amen. Now there's one last thing. Last week I said let's all make a bracelet, remember, with the brave colours? This week, how about you try to build yourselves a city with bricks, or who knows, you could find some things around the house, and make sure it has a wall round it, and then maybe you can make a little tiny window in the wall and hang a little piece of red wool out of it, and that'll be Jericho with Rahab's house, ready for the next bit of the story. Okay, do you want to try doing that? See you next week.